Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is the first episode of our Student Eagles podcast. My name is Brady.
My name's Jill.
And today we are joined by our first guest, Missy Williams from Holly Pond High School. She's a senior at Holly Pond, and this year she went to Girls State, and she was elected as governor. So she had a really cool experience there, and she wanted to come on the podcast today and tell us about that, and also tell us about how young people can get involved and make a difference. So let's start it off. What was your experience like at Girls State this year?
So Girls State, for those of you who don't know, is a mock government program for upcoming seniors. So there is a Girls State and a Boys State. If you are an upcoming senior, you can apply through either your American Legion Auxiliary Post or you can go through your high school. Basically, I was delegated to go among 400 other girls, and I was able to run for any office I wanted, and of course I chose governor.
So you just went for like the highest position.
Yeah,
that's pretty ambitious. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was gonna say.
I was a little intimidated. I walked in. Actually, I came downstairs from the first night, and we were allowed to start campaigning the first morning that we were there. So I came downstairs, and I made no campaign materials. I was going purely off of grassroots campaigning, and I came downstairs, and it was just posters all over the walls of like all these other candidates for governor.
Oh,
and
that's so intimidating.
Yes, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. But I had a great time. It was definitely like the coolest experience of my life. I've gotten a lot of opportunities from that opportunity, so it's branched out to a lot. But I was able to, talk about issues that were important to me, and also hear other opinions. Which it is Alabama, so I didn't get to hear like the broadest range, but there were some extremes. So it was a very, very awesome experience.
Speaking of getting to talk about things you're interested in, last time that we saw you, you were telling us about how you got to debate some of the people at Girls State. Can you tell us more about that?
As opposed to like a formal debate structure, we had these things called whistle stops. And basically what that is the candidates that made it to the general election. So one from my party and one from the opposing party. I was Federalist, she was Nationalist. We were going into rooms separately, and our party leader would do a short introduction, and then it was free game. All the girls in those rooms could ask us anything they wanted to. So I got questions about abortion. I got questions about gun violence. And then afterwards, I'm running for the highest position. So there was many girls who came up to me and they were like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? This is what I think about this. So what do you... So I had some, kind of on-the-fly debates and whistle stops, and I gave multiple speeches. So it was very, very, very cool, very hostile and hectic, but really awesome, really awesome.
So I know there's a lot of young people out there who might be a little bit intimidated by public speaking. So what are some tips that you might have for students on how to become better public speakers?
The first thing is your topic. If I know my topic, if I've researched it well, then there's nothing to be afraid of. As public speaking goes, just be comfortable and confident, and that's really hard to do. Practice makes perfect, but just allowing yourself to be put out there and understand that, maybe something will go wrong. What's the worst that can happen? I've frozen up multiple times. I do public speaking competitions, and I know I've messed up probably 100 times. I stumble over my words, and it's fine. And a lot of people actually, the big thing that inspires me is people are admiring you when you're standing up there and you're giving a speech. So if you're doing a school presentation or you're standing up in front of a room full of adults, you're still being admired by somebody. Somebody's like, wow, I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
So definitely be comfortable, confident, and know what you're talking about, and be prepared to answer questions, especially if it is on something like a certain issue or something you're very passionate about. You have to be able to back yourself up. So even though you need to be comfortable and not worry about it too much, you still need to really know what you're talking about.
I think that's really important too, because I'm going to want to believe the person who is more confident in what they're talking about than the person who is nervous about it. And I'm not saying that you can't be nervous, I've
nerves
done
are
public
good.
speaking before as well,
Yeah.
and it is nerve-wracking. It's
Yeah.
terrifying. But if you act like you're very confident
Mm-hmm.
in yourself and that you know what you're doing, people are going to believe you.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be good.
I also like what you said about making mistakes and like what's the worst thing that's going to happen.
Exactly.
And the worst thing that's going to happen is you do something and you learn from it and you get better. So I like that. That's really good.
Yeah, it's a good tip for debating other people as well, because being confident and staying calm is really important, because the person who wins the debate is the person who stays more calm during the debate. You know, because you always see these debates of like politicians on TV, and one of them gets like really angry and
Yeah.
really riled up.
Yeah.
And if the other person is able to like stay calm and stay collected, then the audience thinks that they're actually the one who won the debate. So I think that's really good advice. Now, okay, so I heard you when you were talking about your experience at Girls State, and you were saying you got there and you walked in and all the other candidates already had like their posters set up because they were running for governor also.
Yes.
So you had to go up against a lot of other girls who were also campaigning for governor. So what do you think it was that maybe gave you an advantage over the other candidates?
I believe that the biggest thing that helped me is authenticity. So I'm a very bright person. I'm a very happy person. And I came in with that, but I also know what I'm talking about. So as opposed to some of the girls that maybe went in and had to research some of it, or another huge thing for public speaking, don't read off of your phone. Never do that. Never read off of your phone. Don't read off of a piece of paper. If you-
Don't read off ChatGPT.
No,
Yeah.
and don't
Yeah.
Definitely
don't
not.
write ChatGPT.
Yeah.
No, that's really bad. I think that was another thing that really pushed me over the top, was because in whistle stops, I was able to be very clear and precise while also being effective. And then with my speeches, they were all just extemporaneous. So they were all just off the cuff. And none of them were, and it's fine to memorize something if that's the only way you can get through it. But reading it off of a piece of paper or your phone is always going to look worse than somebody who is speaking from their heart or from their head or whatever.
I've noticed a lot too that especially our generation, Gen Z, tends to be more engaged in things that are relatable.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many memes I've seen on the internet that were just funny because of relatability.
Yeah.
And so being confident, being relatable, those are all things that are going to make people want to
Yes.
follow you. Being calm, that's going to give you an air of intelligence. So not only are you going to seem like somebody that the public would want to be friends with,
Yeah.
but you seem like some kind of a leader, like you would be like smart, somebody that you want to follow in their footsteps. So that's really good.
Yeah, I think like authenticity is really important, because if you're able to be authentic, like you were saying, I think other people are drawn to that.
Yes.
Other people want to be around you if you're more authentic, and if you're,
Exactly.
being who you really are and trying to, communicate with them on their level. I think that's really important.
Definitely why I went with the
Yeah.
grassroots technique.
Yes, yes. And having those like in-person, face-to-face conversations is really important. Yeah, I think that's great. And one of our missions with Student Eagles going forward is going to be getting young people involved in politics. And you're a great example of that. We're all young people who are
Youngster.
trying to make a difference. And one of my beliefs is that anybody can make a difference. And it doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter if you're still in high school. You can really have an impact in your community. And so that's what we're trying to tell to young people, is like, you can get involved and you can make a difference in your own local community. And we're trying to reach out to young people, all across the state of Alabama to try to get them involved and encourage them and empower them to make a difference. So I was curious to get your thoughts on how young people can make a difference. Like, what are some practical things that they can do to have an impact?
Apathy is the most dangerous thing in the world. If you don't care, then you have no grasp of what's going on. So you can take control and you can find your place in anywhere pretty much. I mean, I found my place in Girls State. That was the first thing that really, really kicked me off. I went to legislative days a few years ago, but you can do stuff in your school, in your community. Like, there is the Student Eagles organizations. There's organizations like that you can join up with, or on your own, just become knowledgeable. Watch the videos, read, learn, watch the news, see what's going on. Don't just say whatever. Don't say, I don't care about politics. When you turn 18, register to vote. Just don't be apathetic. Don't stop caring about what's going on in politics because that's not your passion. For me, that was something I was passionate about. But a lot of my friends after Girls State, we would talk about, my experience and what I heard from other girls there. And they kind of wanted to start getting involved with politics too, because when you learn about the issues that are affecting not just adults, not just voters, but young people as well, it'll make you want to get involved. So just find an organization, find your niche, something that you care about, and get involved. I mean, there's countless ways to do that. Just like I said, becoming knowledgeable is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times we overlook the conversations that we have every day with like family and friends. But the reality is, like, you don't have to be an influencer on TikTok or an influencer on social media to make a difference, because you already have so much influence with those people who you already have relationships with. So like I said, if it whether it's with friends or family or coworkers or neighbors, just people you interact with often, if you're knowledgeable on issues, then you can have conversations with those people. And starting with, focusing on those everyday conversations that you have with those people is a really good way to make a difference, because other people really care about what you say, and the things you say really matters, and what you do really matters. And that's, a great way to start making a difference. I like to say that making a difference doesn't start with changing the world, but instead making a difference starts with changing your own life.
Yes.
Because if you change your own life, and if you change the way that you treat others, and if you're intentional about the decisions that you make, then you can really have a big impact on other people's lives. We want to empower kids and students to make a difference in whatever issue it is they care about. So if it's abortion, then we want to help you make a difference in your community for the pro-life cause by, maybe supporting your local pregnancy center. Or if you care about spreading the gospel, we want to help students. We want to equip students with the knowledge that they need to share the gospel and share Jesus' love with more people. So whether it's abortion, whether it's being America first, whether it's spreading the gospel and telling other people about Jesus, whatever issue it is that you care about, you can make a difference. And if you join Student Eagles, or if you reach out to us, we can help you with that, and we can give you all the resources that you would need to make a difference in your own community. So that's something we're really excited about. But I wanted to ask you if you had any thoughts on Charlie Kirk's assassination, because obviously he was really influential with young people in America. And so I feel like that's something where we, as young people, need to take up the torch for Charlie Kirk. So I think that's a really important issue to talk about right now. So do you have any thoughts on that?
I was personally a fan of Charlie Kirk. Obviously, when I saw that, I was very, very shocked. But the polarity that has come into play in the political climate in America has become extreme. And there's a lot of hate coming towards the conservative side. So I think that was an act of hate and a hope to shut us up. Unfortunately for them, I think that did the exact opposite, and now we're just coming back stronger than ever. But that is a prime example of why it's so important that we don't stop caring, and that we don't say whatever about politics, because politics is everything. That's how our country runs. So you need to make sure that you know what's going on, and, like Brady said, take up the torch for Charlie Kirk.
Because we're going to inherit this country one day.
Exactly.
Like, right now, we're all young, and I think a lot of people our age tend to just be in the fun of being a teenager, doing the fun things, having a good time, but they're not thinking about politics, and they're not thinking about the country that, like I said, like they're going to inherit. But also, I would say that most teens nowadays have a political opinion on something, at least. So if each conservative or Republican teen who has an opinion, who is not putting it into play, did something about it, how much better would our country be? How much more would we progress at that point if everyone just did a little bit?
So what is your message to young people who maybe agree with us on a lot of these issues, but right now they're not really sure if they want to get involved? They don't really see how politics affects their lives. And so they're not really sure where to begin or where to start making a difference. What's your message to those people?
So if you are a teenager, or a preteen even, in just a few years, you're going to be in the voter's position, you're going to be in the taxpayer's position, and you need to have control, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's something my dad's always
Yes,
said.
that's a really good
So,
line. Yeah.
You need to make sure that you have a dog in the fight. And in 30 years, people our age would be able to run for president, or anything else. Eventually we will have a Gen Z president, and we want somebody that knows what's going on, and it has to be someone. So we've got to be involved, and we've got to be knowledgeable, and we've got to care about what's going on, because every decision that is made right now is going to affect you tomorrow, next week, next year, or in 10 years. It's going to affect you.
Yes. And
Yes.
another really good thing to remember is that getting involved in politics is actually a really good way to serve other people, because politics directly affects the lives of people, right? And so if you get involved in politics, that's a really good way to serve your neighbor. That's a really good way to love others like Jesus commands us.
Exactly.
And so one thing that I like to say a lot is that if you actually get involved right now and try to start making a difference right now, that's going to lead to a happier and more fulfilling life,
Yes.
because you're actually doing something that's meaningful and something that has a lasting impact. And I don't have anything against, having fun, right?
Me neither.
And by the way, we try to keep our meetings really fun. We do like some fun social media videos.
We bring
and we play some
snacks,
games
we
and
have
have fun
pizza.
activities. Yeah. So having fun is great, but if that's the only thing you care about, that's not going to lead
Yes.
ultimately to a meaningful and purposeful
That's what I was
life.
trying to say earlier.
Trying to get involved in making a difference and serving other people in whatever way you choose to do it, that's what's going to lead to a more meaningful and more purpose-driven life.
Yes, and what you said earlier reminded me of this poem. Just for context, I think that we don't think that politics is going to impact us. We don't think it's going to affect us. We'll think like, they're going after those people, but that's not me. It will affect you. Eventually,
Yes.
it will affect you. You will be affected by it. So it reminded me of this poem by Pastor Niemöller. First they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. And that is what is going to happen to our country if we don't get started.
And that
if we
that
don't
was
have
written
activism.
that was written by somebody who was a pastor in Germany.
Yes,
during the 1930s and 1940s, during like the Nazi
during World War
takeover.
II. Yes.
Yeah.
So he wrote this during World War II
Yeah.
when this was after he had this mindset, and then he experienced some brutality from the Nazis and realized his mistakes. And I'm so glad that he made that poem. I think about it all the time, especially when we're talking about things like this. I wanted to share it just because it's one of those things that comes up it pops up in your brain every now and then, and it reminds you what path you should be staying on, that what you're doing matters, and that inspiring other people to do what you do is important, and that it does make an impact, even if it is going slowly, because there will be a point, especially if you're just getting started, that your group will be very slow. And it's going to feel like you're not doing much, and that it's not taking off, and that you're not making an impact. But if you keep going at it, eventually it will get there, and it will make an impact.
Yes. Yeah. I want to transition now into talking about some of the more controversial issues of our time. I thought it'd be good to share some of our opinions and hear what Melissa has to say. Because one thing, we talked about Charlie Kirk earlier, one thing that Charlie Kirk did was he was unafraid to confront those controversial issues. He was unafraid to speak the truth, even in the face of lies. And so one of those major issues right now is the issue of abortion. And so we're obviously very pro-life, but I think it would be good to kind of address some of the arguments that people make in favor of abortion, people who are pro-choice, and just kind of like share some of our thoughts on it. And I'd love to hear your opinions on it. So, because I think it's good to really address the arguments that the other side
Yes.
makes,
Yeah.
Because the way that you know that you're ready to win a debate is when you know the
Yeah.
other person's arguments better than they know their own arguments. So you should really learn what the other side has to say. So what do you have to say to people who might say that they are pro-choice because, well, it's my body, my choice, therefore I should have a right to choose?
Yes, it is your body, absolutely. But that child is also a human. So that logic is kind of based on location. So the child is in your body, yes, but that child also has its own body. And then as soon as it's born, in those 13 hours, 2 seconds, whatever it may be, that child becomes a person then. That makes no sense. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, who decided that?
Yeah. So I believe that that's not a fair argument to make. And also, I mean, if you look at the laws, I mean, you can't murder somebody, and abortion is murder, simple as that. So when you say, okay, it's my body, my choice, I can do what I want, what about that child? And at what point, that's such a slippery slope, at what point does it become an issue of murder? Because if I was 9 months pregnant, how could it still be my body, my choice when the child has a heartbeat and fingerprints?
Yeah, it's not your body
Right.
anymore.
No.
What is it about the unborn baby, other than that it's in a different location than the rest of us, that
Exactly.
makes it less human or less valuable?
Exactly, because life begins at conception, and it is not just a clump of cells. That's a human life.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's the reason it's so confusing is because humans don't get to decide. We can't decide on when the quote unquote clump of cells becomes a baby. It's always a baby, of course.
Exactly.
Because that's not up to us, that's up to God.
Exactly.
At the moment of conception, that is when the baby becomes
Exactly.
a human being.
Exactly.
And when you decided to have that baby, you decided to have a human
That
being.
was
You do not
your
get
choice.
to
That
decide.
was your choice.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
That was
yeah.
your
Yes.
choice.
And also, the baby's right to life is more important than the mother's right to choose.
Exactly.
You know, if you're going to say, well, the mother's right to choose versus the baby's right to life, you should allow the baby to live, because the right to life is so fundamental and so important to who we are as human beings. They'll argue that, well, the unborn are less developed than everybody else, and so therefore they're less valuable. But my response to that is that level of development doesn't determine right to life. And so
Exactly.
infants and toddlers are less developed than the average adult human.
That does not
But
mean,
that doesn't take away their right to life, you know?
Absolutely not.
So we shouldn't determine the moral value of somebody based on what level of physical
Mm-hmm.
development they've reached, because then you could apply that standard to people outside the womb as well, and that's where you
Mentally
get into
handicapped, I
really
mean,
dangerous
yeah.
territory. Yeah.
When did
Slippery
they
slope.
become
Yes.
developed enough for you to love them?
exactly.
Yeah.
For them to be
Yeah.
considered a person to you.
I think that the issue of abortion is so important right now, because I think it's one of the major moral dilemmas facing our society, and yet a lot of people don't realize it. A lot of people don't see it for what it is.
Exactly.
So I think it's more important than ever before for Christians and conservatives to take a strong stand on this
Yes.
issue. I think people are open to having their minds changed, but I think we have to be willing to engage in debate and dialogue with people who might disagree with us, and really explain how abortion is so dangerous, and how the assumptions that lurk behind the pro-choice argument of, well, they're less developed or they don't matter as much as the rest of us do. Those are really dangerous arguments to make, because all of those arguments, you can extrapolate them outside the womb and apply them to situations involving people who are already born.
Yeah, like elderly people.
Yeah, like I was saying, if infants and toddlers are less developed than adults, so should we just be able to get rid of them?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think it's really important. I love talking about the issue because I think it's one of the major moral issues of our time.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it's definitely, especially as Christians, it's a moral issue. But it's also, I think it's a spiritual issue. It's a spiritual attack on Christianity and on faith as we know it, because we're seeing the morals that we first placed in the Constitution being torn to shreds, especially on the issue of abortion.
Yes, and speaking of the Constitution, this reminds me I wanted to raise another issue and get Melissa's take on it. A lot of people right now say that the Constitution is outdated. They say, like, oh, it was written 250 years ago, and those ideas are old and outdated, and we don't really need to listen to what the Constitution says anymore. We can kind of make up our own interpretations of what it says. So what do you say to those people? Do you believe that we should still adhere to the principles in the Constitution?
Absolutely. So actually, the Constitution was written with the idea of it being timeless. It was not written
Yes.
to only fit
That's right.
this year. It wasn't written to only fit this decade. It was written to be timeless. That's why there's so much flexibility in the Constitution. I mean, even with some of the amendments, like whatever's not in the Constitution can be left up to states, because they knew that they needed the flexibility. Our founding fathers were very intelligent men. They knew what they were doing. It's not, and the Constitution, if we start to pick it apart and pick and choose what we will apply, okay, we've got to have the freedom of religion, we've got to have the freedom of speech, First Amendment, okay, we've got to have that. Second Amendment, well, I mean, I know there's, controversy around that, but I believe that we have to have the Second Amendment. Every amendment holds something extremely special, and that's also why we have amendments. So they knew that the Constitution would never be perfect. They knew that, then that's why they left so much room for versatility and flexibility, but they left us a chance to change things as our world changed. So that's why we have amendments, and that's why we have the government structure that we do have, so that we can take votes and, write bills and see
People's
what we want to
choice.
change. Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's nothing about the Constitution that is inherently outdated. And if we got rid of the Constitution, I can promise you we would not be in a good place.
Yeah, we see people, especially on the left a lot of times today, tearing down different sections of the Constitution, putting in their own beliefs, what they want to happen. And the Constitution is not built for that. And that's another thing that's, when it comes to having a political attitude, is that you have to be very strong in what you believe in. You can't be lukewarm. When you say that you believe in something, you have to wholeheartedly believe in that thing. Don't be lukewarm about it, because then you'll never get anything done. And you'll be easily swayed by other people's opinions that might not be true.
Exactly.
Yeah. What would you say is one of the best ways that young people can become more educated about the founding principles of our nation and about our government and about the ideas of the founding fathers? Do you have any ideas for how young people can learn more about that?
Yeah, so the first thing that you should do is read the Constitution. Just go through it, read it. It's not super long. And then, I don't know if we have any out of Alabama viewers. We have a very, very long Constitution in Alabama. That would be a very long process to read all of that.
Read the state constitutions.
But, yeah, I mean, read your state constitution. See what's in there. Maybe not the whole thing, but read some of it. See what's going on. Keep up to date on what bills are going through your state legislature, what bills are going through the federal legislature. And then also make sure you know, how is our government structured? Make sure you know that. And once you lay everything out and see how everything is, you'll see that the way that we have structured, the founding fathers have structured our government and the Constitution is about as foolproof as you can get. They thought about just about everything, and that's why we have such a powerful Constitution. That's why we haven't crumbled, even with all of the polarity that we have now, all of the different political opinions. You have so many rights. I mean, the reason we're sitting here right now is because of the Constitution.
Yes.
You can bring anything back to that. And I mean, even for liberals, I mean, the whole reason that they are even able to pick apart the Constitution in North Korea, if I said, hey, I don't like what Kim Jong-un is doing right now,
Killed.
Exactly.
Yes.
You don't get the right or the privilege to be able to speak your mind. And the fact that people could even have the audacity to sit in America and say something, bad about our Constitution is pretty unbelievable, and I mean, privileged in itself.
The only reason you have the right to criticize the Constitution is because of the Constitution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're using their God-given rights to yell
Exactly.
at God.
Yeah. And I think so often we take for granted how good we have it in America. We don't realize how unique this country is and how unique the freedoms and the rights that we enjoy every single day. Like, we don't even realize what it means to have freedom of speech, because we don't live in a country where freedom of speech is restricted. So that's one of the beauties of living in America. And those freedoms and those rights that, as the Declaration of Independence says, are endowed to us by our Creator, those are things we should never take for granted. And I think all too often we do take those for granted. But that's one of the best reasons to get involved, is because in a lot of countries, people don't even have the opportunity to make a difference.
Exactly.
But in America, we actually have the ability to do that. We have the ability to get involved in politics, to speak our minds, to serve other people in our communities. And so if we don't take advantage of that, then we're wasting a gift that God has given us.
Exactly. And I think that's why we see so much polarity, like you said today, is because people have gotten way too comfortable in all of these free rights that they have. They have stopped protecting them, and they've let things like abortion slide.
Yes, people have gotten way too comfortable. And like Ronald Reagan said, freedom is only one generation away from being lost.
Yes.
And so it's important to remember that we have to carry on the fight, and we have to stand for freedom and stand for truth, because at any moment those freedoms could be taken away if we don't stand up for our rights.
And
so I think,
I would say one thing that's very important to understand, though, is the Constitution is not what gives you your rights. So that
Yeah.
lays it out so that they cannot be taken away.
Exactly.
But the Constitution did not give you your rights. So with the liberals that are trying to tear down the Constitution is not what gave you your rights, but it's the only thing that is protecting them when we have so much power-hungry politicians that are coming into the political world. So
Yeah, that's why secularism is so bad for America.
Exactly.
Because one of the core beliefs of the founding fathers was that your rights are given to you by God and not government.
Exactly.
So if you don't believe in God, and if you don't believe that your rights are given to you by God, that our rights are given to us by God, then who are your rights given to you by? Like, where do your rights come from? Your rights just come from the government. And if the government can give you your rights, then the government can take them away.
And
But
they
if your rights are given to you by God, then the government should not be able to just take those rights away.
Exactly.
And because our rights come from God, we Christians, when we are persecuted for our beliefs, when we're persecuted for for upholding what the Bible says, it never weakens us. It always makes Christians stronger. It always weeds out those who are lukewarm, and it keeps those who are the strongest, and it develops these amazing relationships with the Lord. I strongly encourage all teenagers to go and read biographies from Christians in times of persecution, like World War II, things like that. Go and read those because they are so inspiring.
Yes. Well, I think we talked about some pretty heavy subjects today, which I think this was a great conversation. But I wanted to close it out with a couple more lighthearted questions for Melissa. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, the first question is, who is your favorite president?
Okay, so my favorite president would probably have to be Ronald Reagan. Mostly because that was my dad's favorite, but also because I just think he's so funny and I love his principles. I love how I just love Ronald Reagan. I think he was super down to earth and a really cool guy. So
there's a lot to choose from.
yeah. I'm a big fan of Ronald Reagan.
Like I said,
Yeah,
giants
that's great.
to live up to.
Yes. Okay, the second question then, to close it out, if you could go back to one period of history, it could be American history or it could be world history. If you could go back to one time period of history, what would it be?
I think I would have loved to maybe be like a journalist or something during the Great Depression, just to see how everything went down with the stock market crash and everything like that, or during World War II. I would like to see how the climate shifted there when America started to get involved. I think that would be really, really interesting to see.
Yeah.
So
That'd be incredible. What about you, Jill? Do you have a favorite time period of history?
Oh, that's difficult.
If you could time travel right now, where would you want to go?
I might also say World War II, just because I'm really interested in all the spies and all the development that we saw during that period. It was horrible times, but I don't know. It was just for America at least, there was some really cool stuff going on there. So I would like to time travel back, be an American during World War II, get to see the war from America's perspective, but also maybe be a spy in Germany, something like that. That'd be really, really fun.
Yeah.
Because I've read some amazing books about that,
Yeah.
and they're really inspiring as well.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I'm trying to think of what time period of history I would like to travel to.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, I would like to go back to 1776 and be in one of those meetings
room where
in the Continental
The room
Congress,
where it
just to hear the
happens.
conversations and debates they had when they were like, okay, what do we include in the Constitution, or how do we write this Declaration of Independence? I think it'd be cool to hear those debates that they had.
Ancient history is interesting, but I would not go back there.
Yeah.
I would not go to ancient history.
Count me out on world history.
No thanks.
Well, it might be cool to go to medieval times when there were
No.
knights and
Where
castles
they
and
stink like crazy.
yeah.
When they shower once a year.
Yeah. All right. I think that we'll wrap it up now. And thank you so much, Melissa, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
This is a great conversation.
Before we close out, there's one last thing I would like to say. I just want to close out with a Bible verse. Isaiah 45:7-9. I form light and create darkness. I make well-being and create calamity. I'm the Lord who does all these things. I think this is really important to remember, especially in trying times like this with so much polarity, to remember that God is in control of all of it, You do not have to be afraid, especially if you are a Christian,
Exactly.
because God is in all things and God is through all things, and He will see you through it. If we go through a hard time, if we experience persecution, it is for a reason. It is not for no reason. You're in the spot that you are in right now, and it has a purpose. God has a purpose for where He has put you, and God has a purpose for America and where He has put America as well. So that's just a really big thing I like to remember, especially as we're closing out such big remarks and statements that we made.
Yes, God has put us here for just such a time as this.
Exactly.
I think that's really great. All right. Well, thank you guys again.
Thank you all.
I think this was a great time. Thank you to everyone for tuning in to our first episode, and we'll see you again next time.